Bojo and hello, I'm James and I'll be your host for this season of the Everyday Forum podcast, an original Stratfest at Home podcast showcasing a sampling of the thought-provoking discussions from the Stratford Festival's 2025 Meighen Forum, the festival within the festival designed to enhance and contextualize the performances in the main Stratford Festival season. The following discussion was recorded in front of a live audience in Lazaretus Hall at the Patterson Theatre in Stratford, Ontario, Canada. Enjoy!
Hello, everybody. My name is Mira Henderson, and I am the Meighen Forum Coordinator. Welcome to our final event of Education Week and our final speaking event of 2025. Thank you so much. Or 2025. Today, we will ask the question, why are we still fighting for arts education to matter in schools? Before our excellent panel dives into that question, I would like to offer call to action number 83. We call upon the Canadian Council for the Arts to establish, as a funding priority, a strategy for Indigenous and non-Indigenous artists to undertake collaborative projects and produce works that contribute to the reconciliation process. Art and artists are integral to the coping, grieving, understanding, and reconciliation of our past. It is our responsibility as treaty partners to honor the ancestral guardians of this land and its waterways, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Wendat, and the Attawandarong. Today, many Indigenous peoples and artists continue to call this land home and act as its stewards. And this responsibility extends to all of us to take action where we can to continue learning, collaborating, and supporting the 94 calls to action as hope for generations to come. We are delighted you can join us today. I'm going to introduce our panelists for today. Joining us in the middle there, Dr. Kathleen Gallagher, a fellow of the Royal Society of Canada, distinguished professor, and director of the Centre for Drama, Theatre and Performance Studies at the University of Toronto. To her left, Karen Gilodo, associate artistic director of education for Young People's Theatre. She is an Ontario certified teacher and holds a Master of Arts in drama from the University of Toronto. And our moderator for today, Lois Adamson, the Director of Education for the Stratford Festival. Over to you, Lois.
Thanks, Mira. Hi, everyone. There's lots of friendly faces and new ones as well. I'm Lois. I work as the Education Director here. You all look comfy, but if you want to be closer or more central, move on over at any point, and we'll be happy for that. I always say it looks fancy in here, but it's a comfy, cozy conversation, hopefully. I also, a little bit of housekeeping. I know a handful of folks here are going to our dance workshop for teachers, which starts at noon right next door in the Dinner Rooney workshop. So we'll make sure to end in time for you to run over and do that. If you are like, dance workshop for teachers, I want to dance. I'm kind of a teacher, or I like teachers. You can go, totally. You can buy a ticket online, or you're very welcome just to show up. You don't have to be great at dancing, or because everyone's great at dancing, actually. I want to offer a bit of an introduction as to how we know each other before we dive into the conversation. While Mira was introducing us, I was feeling so emotional because I feel like most of what I know professionally is because of these two people. And normally they make me laugh, not cry. So we need to work through that. After Teachers College, after I finished Teachers College, I did my master's, and Kathleen was my supervisor. And I was interested in drama spaces and what that does to us when we go into a drama space, how that changes the way that we feel and how we relate to each other, especially for a young person. And we don't have access to those spaces very much. And she said, oh, do I have the place for you? And Karen was working at YPT and welcomed me with open arms to do research on why teachers bring their students to see theater. And then shortly after that, I was lucky enough to work there for many years with Karen, or when Karen was on leave, having her beautiful kids. I find myself sometimes in my work still, I'll say something and I can hear Kathleen or I can hear Karen in the words that I'm saying. And I think that's the gift of teaching, certainly, but there's something about teaching in the arts or arts education that lends itself to that kind of relational experience, that mentorship, that embodiment. And so I'm thinking about all of that this morning. To start, I want to ask you, before we talk about why we think arts education matters, I want to ask you if there's an arts experience in a school context that you remember as a student that you still think about today, that you'd be willing to share.
I forgot about that question.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we did have a little pre-meeting, but it was a couple weeks ago now. So,
But I just wanted to add one. Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be in this beautiful place at this gorgeous time of year in our part of the world with these extraordinary, gifted, wonderful people sitting on each side of me. And just to add to your story, Lois, I remember the detail. Lois and I had never met, brand new student. And as you spoke, I remembered swiveling in my chair and pulling up on an old desktop, pulling up Karen on my email while Lois was talking, because I thought these two people have to meet each other immediately. And you probably received it.
I
And
remember
said, there's
because
someone in my office who you need to meet pronto.
I remember because a week before, I had sent an email that said, if you ever have any grad students that might be interested in doing research on young people and at YPT, would you let me know? And a week later, this was the email that I got. And then we met Lois. So, yeah.
So an arts experience, I know, I'll be really brief. I know we're talking about education and its pivotal role in terms of access to the arts today, one of the things we're talking about. And I happened to go to an elementary school where there were no arts experiences. But I also came from a large family, and I was the youngest of 5. So when I was in elementary school, I had a sister 10 years older who was in grade 11 drama at an incredible high school where the theater program was excellent. And my first exposure to theater and to the arts was her practicing her monologues to me, actually A Streetcar Named Desire, Blanche Dubois, in her bedroom.
Grade 11, amazing.
By candlelight. So I was 5 and she was 15.
Why by candlelight?
Because mood and
be
effect
enrolled.
matters.
Yeah, and she understood that.
Yes, and I was a captive audience. As the family story goes, apparently I then went downstairs with a mouthful of swear words, and my mother was outraged and told my sister to never rehearse for me as her audience again. But that was my first experience.
I love that.
I remember that I had a lot of really great experiences in my elementary school, but I loved choir. And choir was the best day of the week for me. And I loved it. And I did all the school plays and everything. But I also remember one day at choir practice, just singing my heart out. And the choir director stopped and said, "You are sticking out like a sore thumb." And that's still an expression that I hate today. I really hate that expression. And I remember thinking, oh, sticking out, bad, must blend in. And like it didn't stop me from participating. I still loved it, but I remember just the embarrassment of it. And that is a thing that will still come to mind when I think about great teachers, amazing teachers, and teaching moments that are really regrettable, I think.
The one that came to mind for me is a choir one too. My mom is here and she spent a lot of her life trying to find me a white shirt and black pants, and which are always, when you need them, elusive, nowhere to be found in any store. But our choir sang for Prince Charles sometime in Hamilton. And I remember I woke up on that day, but something had happened. I'd slept weird and I had a crick in my neck. So I had to be like this. But as a choir, you're supposed to stand in a certain way. So I had to like cheat it out so that my face would be with everybody else's. And I will never forget this. It was so bizarre. And we were at Cops Coliseum and we had these little rainbow pins we got to wear as well. Like the costume, the candles, like all of that matters, I think. And I hope you're thinking of your own memories now too. So often though, it's a negative one that comes to the fore, one of judgment or something like that. It's tricky to counterbalance those with all the good ones. Why do you think that arts education matters?
So I've been thinking about this question all week, and this is my answer. I just do. I don't know. I have a lot of reasons why, but I just do. And I think it gets to a highly subjective question of why does art matter and why does education matter? And those are, I think personal responses that we have to both of those questions. Both of them, for me, at the heart of it is connecting with people. And so it's hard for me to not, especially because we talk about this question a lot professionally. And sometimes I wonder, who are we answering this question for? And is it enough to just believe because you know it to be true? But for me, it really is. It's about fostering moments of connection between people and creating the conditions for young people to really understand one another and have that understanding come by way of an artistic expression or encounter.
So I have a lot of answers to this question, and I narrowed it down to 3 that I want to make sure I share with you, because I'm an empirical researcher. So I have actually spent my career trying to answer versions of this question. What is happening and why does it matter? So the first thing I'll say is I think we're creative beings at our very core, no matter what we do, no matter what kind of work we engage in. And this really came to the fore for me during COVID, when I was doing empirical research that was meant to be in person, and it was for the first year. This was a 6-year project, and then the following 2 years, we ended up online. And my research, that project was taking place in Canada, England, India, Greece, Taiwan. And so we, as many people did, the beloved term pivoted into an online global drama club. So I was talking to young people in all of these places over 2 years online. And it was an extraordinary experience. It was a bit of a life raft for the adults who were part of that community, because there was so much to be learned from young people who we tend to call digital natives, because they have only in their life known the digital world, who had such an overwhelming diet of all things digital during 2 years of lockdown that they grew to hate the digital realm. And those young people in Toronto and in all of the other cities where I was working, all of them developed what we might call analog hobbies. Every week, there were young people, teenagers, saying, "Look at this bag I sewed this week." And I thought, I made that bag in grade 8 home economics, which is not in the curriculum anymore. They were reading big books. One boy said, "I read this Stephen King novel." And I thought, I haven't seen a kid with a hardcover book in his hand in a very long time. They turned to where they knew they would be nourished as creative souls when everything else went dark. So that was a real lesson for me. The second answer I wanted to give you came from a finding from that same study. And I talk about many of the findings of that research in this book called Hope in a Collapsing World: Youth, Theater, and Listening as a Political Alternative. And what I want to tell you that I learned, because this may be a common, one answer that people give, why the arts matter, is kids grow their confidence, and confidence is important. And I want to share with you something different that I discovered in the course of my own research. It isn't confidence, but security that young people garner in an arts-making, theater-making context. And there's a difference. Security is a necessarily relational condition. It requires that you feel secure in a place and with other people. You can't feel secure on your own the way you can feel confident on your own. So I started to look at the nature of what makes a young person secure in these kinds of spaces to experiment, to take risks, to do all of those things that we know are developmentally important, which also means you can feel very insecure in a space suddenly on the turn of a dime when a teacher calls you out. So it is a space where you can feel secure, and that is very different from feeling confident. And I say a lot more about that in my book. The last thing I, of course, have to do this in terms of answering is, in theater at least, which is the art form that I know best, there is the necessary idea of the ensemble, which means you have to learn to be an ensemble. There's something called ensemble learning. And what that means is, well, that you have to listen. You have to have the backs of the people in the room with you or in the project with you. We're not a team of stars, though we are a team of chemistry. And that is true of the ensemble. As soon as it becomes about individuals, it becomes something different. So that ability to do the thing that will make someone else do the thing, that will make someone else do the thing, that will make everybody sing together, that you have to be a team. You cannot be. You have to be more than the sum of your parts. And that is absolutely what I see in the research that I do. So that's my third of maybe 197 answers I have for this question.
And can I ask, Kathleen, did you decide to start researching, like in an empirical way, why this matters? Because like Karen, you felt, I just know that it does, but I want to figure out why? Or what propelled you to do that?
Yeah, I was a drama teacher in a high school. I felt every day that, for 10 years I did that, and I felt every day that very, very important things were happening for lots of people, and they were different kinds of things, including me. I was one of the ensemble. And I knew that in that context, and this is perhaps true of all teaching, teachers point at something for classrooms of students and more or less say, no matter your discipline, this matters. They put some sort of frame of significance around something. And then people in the room can take it up or can say, no, it doesn't matter to me right now. They can resist. A lot goes on, but that's the essential proposition. So when I was a teacher, I knew that was happening, and that brought me back to graduate school. I loved being a drama teacher, but I also knew that a lot was going on that I wanted to pursue intellectually, that I wanted to be around great thinkers to help me understand what was going on in that space. And that was the beginning of the journey. That led to a dissertation, and that led to pursuing research and the theater making space as the single most important context for me to study now for 30 years.
And you've touched on this a little bit, this idea that the arts develop confidence or they help build relationships. And as artists or arts organizations, as teachers, we often have to make these arguments about why the arts matter. And oftentimes they're tied to things like performance in other subjects, like if you know, or a sense of confidence, part of well-being. And I'm curious, and I am of the understanding that math teachers don't do the same thing. They don't spend a lot of their time advocating for math education to matter. And so I'm curious about that. And I'm wondering if you think that there's a problem with us constantly, it feels like, and I'm looking, there are many people here who have done this work for a long time in the room. Is it okay that we have to keep making those arguments, or do you see a problem with that?
I've been sort of thinking about this in terms of like, well, when would we know that we were done? Like, when would we be like, okay, I think the kids have enough arts. I think we're good. We made it.
In fact, maybe too much suddenly.
Yeah, we should maybe tamp it down a little. So I think, and I worked with Alan McInnes, who was the artistic director at YPT for so long, and he said many years ago to me, this is always going to be missionary work. There will be times when we have more money and it will seem easier, but we'll still be advocating. And then there will be times when we have fewer resources and it'll be a little bit tougher, but we'll still be advocating. And so do I think it's okay? I don't think it's okay that we have to keep making this argument. And I really do struggle with the let's do music because it will help with math kind of equation. I understand, I think, why it happens a little, because it can feel invisible. The experience can feel elusive for students. It can be very hard to articulate. If you learn something in math, not me, because I can't learn math. Thank you, Adam. My son just said true. I can learn some math. But when you learn it, and you know it, and you can explain how you know it. I think that if you've had, a great play works on you, a great lesson works on you, and you sort of leave and you don't really know what's happened. You may not be able to articulate it for a long time, or you may be able to just say, yeah, that made me feel X or whatever. I think that it is a struggle to always be making the argument for it, because it's a hard thing for us to understand ourselves, what has happened to us when we've encountered something really special. And last year I read a book about the Challenger disaster. Yeah, I told Lois this. I said, I know what I'm going to talk about in a year from now. And one of the astronauts had gone to space in 1984, Ron McNair, and he brought a saxophone, and he wanted to play the saxophone in space. And he did, but the recording of it got taped over, and there was no evidence of it. And so he wanted to go back to space really, really badly so that he could do, and he planned a duet with an artist in Houston, and he would play a sax solo from space while the artist played the rest of the music on Earth. And for him, it was about connection across the heavens, the ether. And just before the mission, which obviously ended in an awful way, NASA had scrapped that. They said, no, you can't play the sax. And at a press conference, somebody said to him, well, why did they scrap it? Was it a little too frivolous for a space mission? And he said, it's not frivolous at all. It's everything but frivolous. It's meaningful. And when I read that, I couldn't get that out of my mind, that actually the scientific pursuit was in service of an artistic endeavor. And that was so key to this person who is a person of science. And so what are we doing all of the science for? But that has its place. It's a yes and situation. It's not either or.
I'm going to pick up on this perfectly. I think it's a privilege to think that the arts matter. I don't think everybody gets to think that. I think that's already a privilege to know that the arts matter. My example is in the department where I am the chair, most of our students are doing double majors, drama and. It's often biology, it's often drama and women and gender studies, drama and physics. It's astonishing. And we are lucky because we are in a faculty of arts and science. It has not already been separated and relegated to their own worlds. So many of the students who do that are taking drama. They're only allowed to do a major in drama. And these are often racialized kids of racialized or immigrant or lower income families, where the arts are not the obvious means to work and success in life. So it's under the radar that they do a major in theater. Well, they do a practical job course that will get them a real job, that will help them live well. I know. And so for many of these students who have to persuade their parents that it's okay that they're doing a major in drama because they're also doing a major in biology, that by the end of that time, many of those very students go on to conservatory programs because they get very serious about performance, or they become very different kinds of doctors when they go on to medical school. That was the dream of their families and maybe theirs too.
It echoes, some of you were with us on Thursday. We talked a lot about narrative medicine and these false dichotomies, which are actually one and the same.
It's a real problem. So I don't mind the instrumental argument, not one bit. You know this about me. I will be, the more entry points into the arts, the better. If I need to tell a parent, as I have many times, that the work they're doing in this class will serve them in some other pursuit, I will happily make that argument because it's true. Not because I'm lying, but because it's true. So I think we don't serve ourselves to continue to perpetuate this idea of a hierarchy of discipline and a hierarchy in education. Is it fair that we have to speak into our value and our worth more often than many others? Maybe it's not fair, but I don't mind it at all because good things come from that. And we need to reintegrate so that our engineers also understand why the arts matter. And we're in this space at this moment. I'd like to hope that the architects and designers of this space understood why such a beautiful space mattered to the pursuit that takes place here. So I'm all for arts as a means to an end and arts as an end in itself, because I think you do only come to know the intrinsic value of the arts through the route that is possible for you in your given circumstances with your educational history, your family history, your background. So all of the stories need a way in.
Mm-hmm. And I want to ask a question connected to that. In schools in Ontario right now, we're in the middle of a real back to basics rhetoric, a big focus on job readiness, STEM learning, science, technology, engineering, and math. And sometimes we're like, oh, do you mean STEAM with the arts? And they're like, we don't mean STEAM. No, we mean STEM. And so I think what's happening there is there's not a recognition, even though all the research says this. We know that, an education in music serves you in math. We know an education in the arts serves you if you practice medicine. We're not seeing that in the curriculum. Why do you think that is, that it's still sidelined then, that hierarchy remains? And what might we do about it beyond these arguments, these instrumental arguments we're making? Because that doesn't seem to be impacting the practice in a school context.
Okay. So there are all kinds of structural barriers to an improved state of play in the arts in schools. One of them being that you just need one arts credit to graduate from an Ontario high school. One. So the curriculum is doing us no favors by saying one experience and you're good. It's all you need to know. But as teachers have always done, we can't be dictated to by policy and governance that happens somewhere else, out of touch with the people in the room. So I think that one of the things that becomes very important in such a, let's say, a hostile environment to the arts is that arts teachers have to become the ground level workers to educate up. They have to educate the principal in their school about why it matters. The first thing I did when I became a high school teacher, I didn't take it as oppositional. I always take it as someone just doesn't know, or maybe they were told by a rude choir master that they were a sore thumb. People have baggage with the arts. So that's why you have to keep working on ways to re-invite people back into the creative domain where there might be fear or there might be negative experiences. So I think teachers do that at the ground level. They do it with their students. They do it with their administration in a school. They do it when they become team members on writing teams for curriculum. While I said you only need one arts credit, the other thing that's incredible about the drama curriculum in the Ontario system is that it is so wide open that it gives teachers incredible latitude to experiment and devise and go off book and follow the interests of the students. So the bottom line for me is, in such a difficult professional environment where you feel like you're swimming against the tide all the time, and you are often the single arts teacher or the single drama teacher, single visual arts teacher, single music teacher, where you don't feel you have your community is somewhere else. You have to get out to that community. You have to bring your students to that community. Stratford, YPT, excellent examples. But here's the key. You have to nurture the arts practice of the teachers. So it's great to bring young people to expose them. But those teachers are working in such political and often hostile environments that they lose touch with their own arts practices. And they are there because they had one at one point, maybe very buried now, because they're in challenging situations, and because the work of teaching is exhausting. So it's very hard to be done at the end of an emotionally demanding day and say, now I'm going to play the piano for 3 hours. That's what I do, not 3 hours though. But that is my outlet. So I think arts organizations, I think all of us have to continue to nurture the practitioners so that students actually see live practice and what it does in someone's life. And that's how I think we combat, really, we don't need to persuade anyone. We just need to do us. We should do us, and the rest will be obvious to those who don't have exposure. But I don't judge them. I want them in. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that when we know that we're in that kind of context, I think in the work that I do and other educators in arts organizations, we quickly learn how to speak that language. And so we go, okay, we're in a back to basics phase. So we're going to now talk about skill building. We're going to talk about structure. And we can speak that language, but what happens in the room is still what happens in the room. And it's not dishonest. It's sort of highlighting, in a different way maybe than we would if we were just having a conversation with a bunch of drama teachers. That, okay, we do have to advocate and we have to use the advocacy language, but the work that's happening is the real work of the classroom, and it's the real work of YPT, of bringing kids and knowing what happens when they come to see shows and what that experience will offer them. But sometimes we have to write an email to a principal and say, yes, they will cover X, Y, Z curriculum, which is great when the curriculum is quite wide open. We can make a strong case for it because it does meet curriculum expectations, absolutely. And sometimes we have to be a little more prescriptive about that. And I agree, I'm okay with it. I don't want to get angry about that. I want to help teachers make whatever argument they need to make to be able to come and participate. And they know why they're doing it, and we know why they're doing it. And often the principal knows too. And the principal has to answer to somebody. So I feel like if we're all in it together and we're trying to create something special for kids, then we'll make it happen and we'll use the language that we need to do. In our drama school a number of years ago, so we have an interest-based drama school at YPT on Saturdays and Sundays and on Wednesdays after school currently. We were sort of noticing that we were really dipping into language that was about process and collective creation, and all of that is true, and all of that is what's happening in the classroom. But we were noticing that parents were, basically like, my kid wants to sing and dance and learn how to be on stage and learn lines and learn text. And so we just listened to that and said, actually, the process part is kind of none of their business. That's our business. That's the business of teaching, to know that that's what's happening, that it's process-led, that it's child-centered, that it's following the interests of the kids in the room. But we can talk about that in terms of skills that they're going to gain. If that helps bring people in, then that's what we'll do.
I'll never forget. It reminds me, Kathleen, you said to me, I think when I was doing my research, that some of us who do this work have the false assumption that doing a play that is about our own story is better for us and more transformative than doing a production of Annie together. And there are all of these problematic assumptions that come with this idea and this valuation of what is a good arts experience, a good arts education experience, and particularly for young people from different lived experiences. And I think that connects to it. It also makes me want to ask about this trap that many of us fall into about saying, well, but the arts are transformative. They will change your life. and especially for some people whose lives need to be changed. Like, I think that's a trap that we can fall into, and it can be dangerous in some ways, but I understand why we make that argument. How do you think making that argument impacts access in arts education, in school context, but maybe more broadly as well?
The argument of this should be transformational?
This is going to be transformational, especially for marginalized populations, or especially for kids that are not engaged.
Oh, it's so misguided. I don't even know where to begin with that. And I say that knowing that very good people want that to be true. But it's so full of assumptions. And one of the things that is true in any drama classroom that I've been in is that it is impossible to know what the internal narrative is for everyone else in front of you. And so to make sweeping claims about what is happening for this amorphous group of non-individuals is really already a premise one cannot begin from. The idea that small things are happening for everyone and those small things are different and embedded in people's different biographies is something I think we could say with some accuracy. But imagining that we know, never mind that that thing might not be known to the person themselves for another 20 years, is really unscientific, to say the least, but also gets us into, I think what you're alluding to, Lois, it's a real trap to sell slogans because, and I get it. Again, I say that without judgment because when you are at the wrong end of a scarcity project, i.e. education, you'll say or do anything to survive. And so I don't blame advocacy that goes in these directions. But I think if only we had the time and place in a room, especially as arts teachers, to listen to the people in front of us, which is why I have definitely the best job in the world, to spend my entire life listening to young people. I will add this one thing. Maybe 30 years ago, some of you may remember the former artistic director of Avon Theatre, Urjo Correda, and Mallory Gilbert was the general manager at that time. And maybe 30 years ago, they reached out to me. It was a great surprise to me. I didn't know them. And said, we're thinking we should be connecting with teachers. Do you have any ideas about that? And we got together. We had an incredible conversation where I basically said, you have to feed the teachers. You have to be a place where teachers feel in an ongoing way that their own practice is being not just celebrated, but challenged, improved. The very first teachers' night happened later that year. Tarragon was the first theater, I'm pretty sure I know this for certain, in the Toronto landscape, to reach out specifically to arts teachers. And the event was me interviewing Joan McLeod on her play at the time, The Shape of a Girl. And it was just a room of drama teachers. And it was magic, especially because one of the things that Joan McLeod does as a playwright is has a young person in every single play she writes. And when some teacher in the room asked her, why do you do that? These aren't young people's plays. They're plays for adults. It was produced at Tarragon, not aimed at young audiences. She said, because young people are the truth tellers in our world. I need a truth teller in every single one of my plays. And on that point, I agree with Joan McLeod. They are the truth tellers. So teaching teachers to listen to the people in front of them is the way that we will have authentic arguments for what's going on. And there aren't enough hours in the day to be able to hear all that will be going on for all the people in front of us, not based on their socioeconomic status, not based on a difficult backstory. I think what you were referring to, Lois, is research that I did many, many years ago in a school in Toronto that was meant for students who couldn't get a high school diploma in any other way. It was a second chance kind of school, and I was doing research on the drama program there. And it was exactly a young woman who said to me, I don't want to do a play about myself. I am a recovering addict. I want to do a play not about me, but about somewhere where my imagination can travel and I can have a break from what is so difficult about being me. Can you say that as a slogan or a claim for the arts? That's when I learned that a musical was important in ways different from what we usually think. So we can't know the stories. We shouldn't make those kinds of claims. But if we're pushed into a corner and some administrator or some funder needs us to say that this community will benefit from an arts practitioner in their environment, then make the argument. But can we quietly know among ourselves that we're saying those things because That's the only way some people will get on board with us, and then we'll do the work, and then they'll learn different things. So strategic.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to just add on to that I find it really troublesome also to tell this story of transformation. And I think that for arts organizations, it can lead to a very dangerous path of wanting to be a social service organization. And that's not what we are. And that's not our knowledge base. It's not our level of expertise, but it is where some of these programs will want to go. And sometimes it's for funding. And that's just so tempting. I get it. But it is a dangerous thing, and it feels like an overpromise, underdeliver to say, yes, this program is going to save lives. How do we know? It's not a good idea, I think, to make those kinds of claims. And I think it's not a good idea for arts organizations who are built to do certain things to try to be social service organizations. I think that's dangerous and irresponsible. And, a number of years ago, I did have someone who was consulting for us in the fundraising department about 10 years ago say, can you do a program with Syrian newcomers? Because I can get us funding for that. And I said, no. No, I can't do a program with that as the impulse. But about 6 months later, I was contacted from somebody at a hotel where a number of newcomers were staying. And they said, can you provide some programming for the kids? Because they're not going to school. They have very unstructured days. The parents need a break. And I said, yes, absolutely, we can do that. Because the impulse is coming from the community, not coming from a space of, can we go after this funding, which is so, again, get it, but feels very wrong. And also then we had to put into the parameters that we're not a social service agency and who else will be in the room when we're there so that we can do arts programming with kids and make sure that it's a great experience for them and not promise to do something we're not capable of.
Okay, I have to say one thing. You just inspired
You can say
that.
more than one thing.
No, this is good because I think you're right, Karen. We're moving in a different direction, and a really, of course, community-led, community-seeking. But many years ago, when you may recall a large influx of newcomer refugees from Hungary, and the TDSB suddenly had a school in the West End of Toronto with hundreds of non-English speaking, newly arrived Hungarian children of refugee families. And they also reached out to, at the time I ran a center for urban schooling at U of T, and said, can you work with these Hungarian newcomers because they're really struggling, and can you do some magic drama with them? And I said, oh, yes. Oh, yeah, we can totally do magic drama with the newcomers. And then I said, you'll need to fund an amazing arts practitioner. And at that time, I knocked on the door of Alan Dilworth, who I knew as a director, was particularly adept at creating space in a room for really any group. I also said, you'll need to fund the community center in Parkdale, where there are some experts in newly arrived refugees, and they have to be part of our program. So I laid out all of the things that would be required to maybe make one positive step forward. And then we created something to invite all of the TDSB higher-ups to attend, which had no English in it. That was fun. In the first day of being in the room, when Alan and I had dreamt up amazing things we were going to do, we realized in about 15 minutes that none of it was going to work. And instead, Alan said, what does it feel like to welcome and be welcomed? And we seized upon this idea, understanding in the first 10 minutes that even our gesture to shake hands with the young teenagers in the room was not a gesture that made any sense to them. We were immediately in a translation problem of our understanding of hospitality was not something they could easily receive. So the rest of that project, did we transform lives? No, but you know what we did do? We got the TDSB to buy English, a huge number of English-Hungarian dictionaries. So sometimes transformation is one, you have to have the right people in the room, I agree with you completely, but it is seizing upon what one thing will improve the circumstances that much. And doing that through arts facilitation, to me, is the greatest possible tool we have to find out what is the need and what could we do and who needs to be in the room that we advocate to so that they make this thing happen.
Mm-hmm. And it's the arts practice that also allowed for an exchange to happen, for the learning of those in power to happen. So often here, because folks love Shakespeare and they know what it means to them, they want us to share that with young people, so it will mean the same to them. And we don't know that that's the right thing. Another element of this sort of scarcity mindset that comes to mind as arts organizations is that then every field trip better be pretty great. Hopefully it's the best play we've ever staged. It leaves little room for risk, for question, and for critical conversation about why that play didn't work on that day for this class. The stakes are too high.
It's
when that's
crazy
how we
because
engage.
the fail in science is one of the a critically important part of the process of great discovery. Why can't we sell failure in that way?
I think
The critical understanding that comes from a terrible production.
Yeah. But I think sometimes what happens is people say, I guess I just don't get theater. I guess theater is not for me. So, if there's a song they don't like, they don't say, oh, I guess I just don't like music. They go, I didn't like that song.
They don't write off the whole art form.
They don't write off the whole thing. But I would say in opera and dance and theater, it becomes, oh, I guess I didn't understand it. It's not for me. And it's so easy to switch off from that. But when Lois was with us at YPT, her program was the member schools program. And that program was for students or schools to sign on for a 3-year agreement to bring their whole school over the course of a season to multiple plays. And that's, I think, the closest we got in that period of time of really having a critical discussion, because the kids were so well versed in the vocabulary of theater that we would hear them leaving saying, I didn't really like the lighting in this one. And we were like, yes, this is the best.
And they'd say, oh, you know what I remember from this one, and I didn't see it here. Yeah.
Yeah, they were really having a conversation, and it was compare and contrast. And something that we say at YPT when we come out for our Q&A, we don't come out and say, did you all enjoy the show? We don't care. If you didn't like it, tell us why. That's great. And one kid, I remember, once left and said, thanks for the nap. And that kid was not wrong. It was a boring show, and so great. Do that here, do that wherever you feel comfortable enough to do that. That's what we want. That's the kind of engagement that we want. Not the sleeping kind all the time.
Sometimes.
No, but sometimes just say it.
I want to make sure we have lots of time for your questions, but I also have to read them before I say them. Give me 1 second. There was something I was going to say. You talked about that first teacher's night, Kathleen. So before I start answering these, and we've talked about this a bit, at that point, tarragon that arts organizations recognized we need to listen to teachers and respond to what they're telling us. What are you hearing from teachers now about what they need, not in terms of their school systems or the government, but in terms of arts organizations? What are you hearing that they're seeking for their students and for themselves? And you talked about it too, Karen, like the drama school. There was a change made because of what you were hearing from parents on behalf of their children. So a similar question about how can we respond?
I feel like right now we're in an interesting place because I don't know what teachers need, and I don't know why I don't know. I feel like a number of years ago, we were much more in tune with one another in terms of educators and arts organizations. And I'm sure that the pandemic and turnover with a lot of teachers, that has something to do with it. The main thing we hear are resources, but I think that what they also need to know from us is what's possible. And I don't think that I'll speak for YPT, sometimes very good at telling the compelling story of what happens in those small moments and why they're important. So I think that there's a period right now that we do need to listen and talk to each other a little more, because it's a little strange to feel in a bit of a vacuum in terms of what's happening in classrooms around the city and how YPT as an organization can work as a partner with teachers.
I've got an answer for that. YPT in Stratford, for sure, are the best there is currently in our landscape in terms of connection to classrooms, to teachers, to arts educators. The study guide, which is an art form, both of these women are extraordinary at, the gold standard, I would say, has always, Karen, helped teachers sell to their administration why coming to the theater, why having a 3-year relationship with a theater is actually educationally significant. Teachers are in a very different, from my experience, and this is in lots of classrooms in Toronto, but also in all of those global places that I mentioned earlier, because my ongoing research is doing that. In some new places too, including Nigeria and Ireland is a new collaborator of mine. Technology and social media has changed everything. I'm not going to walk gently around this one. I know because of focus groups I hold with young people who say, and I will not garnish this in any way, help us, we're addicted, we cannot stop on our own. They are saying in so many ways, can the adults in the room please show up? They have zero focus. In 2022, right after COVID, right as the schools opened again, I found myself in a drama classroom in a school in the West End of Toronto with a group of grade 10 students who to a person said to me, I can't focus. I don't know how to listen to a teacher and take notes. I think I'm going to fail in university because nobody is teaching me that skill. I don't know how to synthesize. My attention span is 5 minutes total. Help us. I will find every opportunity in any situation where I speak to recount this because they are asking us to step up. The reason why you're not connected to the teachers is because at least in 2022, there was a school board policy pressured by parents that students were allowed to have their phones at all times because it was their property and because it was a parent's right to access their kid at any moment that they needed to. And no principal that I knew of stood up for teachers who were trying to teach in a room of students scrolling. I watched it. I felt ill with what I was watching, and students were calling each other out. There was no one in charge. The one drama teacher I worked with who tried to do it with a nice friendly box and please drop your phone in on your way in, got called into the principal's office because there were parent complaints. And the school board said, we won't back you. Any of those phones break, it's on you. We have dropped the ball in such a significant way. Now the board has a policy, took them a couple of years. It's barely enforced, from what I can tell. The horse is out of the gate. So we need some serious rethinking because we do have phone addictions. We have social media addictions. Last year, I was in our Drama 101, 150 would-be drama majors at U of T in a large lecture. And I was in that class watching from behind because we were actually going to hire a new faculty member, and part of the hiring process is that they offer a lecture to a large group of students. And this professor who we eventually hired was one of the most engaging lecturers, teachers. She had puppets up there. It was a show that they should have paid to see. It was so exceptional. And I sat behind a sea of laptops with 40 tabs opened on everyone's computer, and they could listen in about 10-second increments before their head went down. And it was at that moment that I said, we have to change this. I can't be a witness to what I'm seeing. And I worked with the faculty member who teaches that class, and this is as far as we could go. Think about this. We can't ban laptops. There are accessibility needs. There are human rights. People need to have access to their... Clearly, an incredibly entertaining professor is not going to do it. I witnessed that because it's an addiction. It really is. We tried to do something so small, which is if you don't want to have a device during this lecture, if you want to go old school and write some notes and listen and push yourself to focus, and we know it's hard, sit right here in the middle. So at least the people in the middle here aren't distracted, because what I watched not was just everyone was doing it, but someone was listening, and then they saw their neighbor who got onto YouTube, and then they got onto their YouTube. It was infectious. Now we have a big lecture room where the entire center is full of most of the people in the class, and the devices are at the side. So the infection has gone the other way. I don't think we've solved it, but what we did was create one tiny modification to say, if you think your own or others' devices are standing in the way of your effective listening and participation, sit here. And I'm just watching this year. Is it growing? How does it change week by week? What is that doing? And of course, we'll ask the students at the end. This is one of several. I won't go into detail, but all I'm saying is at the university, we've already lost the plot. We have to make tiny steps towards something very different, because the schools are absolutely lost, no matter what the grand headlines are about bans on this, that, or the other. It's a serious addiction problem. So that's why you're not connected, because teachers are struggling so severely on that front that the idea of a nice arts educational experience where students will pay a lot of money, have to buy a bus, they'll have to fight really hard to get everyone to agree. The other teachers will be upset that their students are missing their class to go to the theater. For the students to do this for most of the theater, nobody thinks it's worth it, because we've lost the plot on what really matters. So that's what I think we need to be screaming from the rooftops about.
I also think it speaks to, they agree. Scream.
Yeah.
It speaks to, and I don't think we should go back to this, but there was a time when teachers were trusted. And I think we should trust teachers, but
I was going to say, you don't think we should go. We should not. Those were the darkest days, Lois.
And we can't go back there.
We can never go back.
to the point that they were trusted so much, there was no kind of, agency for young people or for parents for an interruption of that. I think that was happening. And now I think it's real far the other way where, as you say, like even the administration are not supporting their teachers. They're catering to maybe the loudest parents in a way that's not serving anybody.
Not the private schools, just the public schools. Just a little addendum there.
We notice, we love when kids talk through the show. We don't shush kids. We don't ask ushers to, police them in any way. But we're noticing that there is a lot more. And we're sort of listening to it. And to me, it clocked what my 9-year-old does or watches, which are these YouTube videos with people commenting on the video. So the kids were sort of live commenting on the action of the play, not necessarily a bad thing, but they weren't super listening. They were listening to each action that was happening and going, whoa, that blah, 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 like in the same language as the YouTube language. And I just was really taken aback by, okay, because a lot of them don't have their devices during the shows and they are forced to have sustained concentration. And so the play better deliver a payoff, right? To make it worth it. But the other thing that's happening is this running commentary, this YouTube running commentary that's going on while they're watching.
That's fascinating. There was a lovely student the other day at the Scottish play. And after I heard him say to his friend, I was just trying to take one picture for my mom. I think it would have been okay just to take one, but they said no. And I thought, oh, right, you're also the documentation of our lives, and just the meeting point of cultures that where it's like, oh, and our reaction sometimes as arts organizations is like, how dare you try to take a photo mid-play? But his intention was very good. It was just not contextually appropriate. Yeah. I want to ask a question. This is for you, Kathleen, about the research you've shared, and you've shared that you have partners in Greece, Taiwan, Ireland. There's a curiosity about how you measure or assess across cultures and within cultures. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. So the research that I do is ethnographic, and the research ecology that I create is that all of these places have their own local artists, teachers, students, researchers. So my collaborators are the people in those places where there is shared culture, shared understanding, shared history. And we as global collaborators try to make appreciable to each other what is going on in our culturally and linguistically specific contexts. We share, and yes, we do travel. In fact, in the spring of 2026, I will bring all of the new collaborators to Toronto to visit some Toronto schools. And then in the following 5 years, I and PhD students who work with me will go to all of those other sites. So what we're trying to do is create a research ecology where not we're all doing the same thing, but we are we often use specific theater genres where that is shared. Pedagogically, we might create some work for students around site-specific theater as a good example. And we will share that with our collaborators, and they will work with their artists and adapt that work, make it relevant to the cultural context in which they're working. And we will then be able to speak together about the questions driving the research. The project that I'm just beginning this year is sort of looking at the drama space, the drama workshop, the drama classroom as a place for human discernment and discourse. How do we talk with each other as a consequence of having a shared purpose to create something together? How does that affect how we think about things and each other. So imagine these very different contexts. And when we meet online, yes, we actually have to have translators. The students don't share language, although the number of students in other places who speak English extremely well is shocking, always. But we will have translation. I think the key here is what I'm not trying to do, which would be common in research of this kind, is to compare places. That's when you get into you said measure or, the metrics for this. I do have quantitative, remember my earlier point about liking all the disciplines? I do quantitative research too. It isn't just qualitative. There is survey, which is a big process to develop a survey that's culturally relevant to students in Taiwan, as in Toronto. So we have to do a lot of upfront work to hire teams of people who not just make a language translation, but make, for instance, the word care. My last project was looking at the relationship between hope and care in young people as cared for and as caregivers in their lives and in their communities. And I realized that there are 5 different words in Greece for the word care. When I said care in English, and we all nodded, my Greek collaborator said, "Which care? Which care do you mean?" And I said, "What do you mean, which care? Care. So we had to figure out in surveying the students in every situation, and that could be taking care of your fellow actor in a performance. It could be taking care of your relief pitcher in a Blue Jays game. These were different words and different concepts in the minds of the students in Greece. So it's incredible. And what we're not doing is comparing. Are students in Toronto caring more, or do they have more hope than students in India? India is my longest term collaborator. No, we're situating these global cities alongside one another. We're pursuing questions that we have agreed are of interest to all of us. We're doing theater work because I believe that in the making, in students working out difficult ideas through a creative process, is where we glean the most understanding about what they care about what they believe, about what they hope for. So that's what we're all doing, and then we're coming together and trying to make these very different environments appreciable to one another. So it's a sort of learning threaded throughout for everyone.
I know there are lots of Canadian friends and teachers here. We also have a number of folks here from the US, longtime and new collaborators that I see with us. So I'm curious if this is a question from you. It's a question about whether the current political climate has done arts advocates a favor. What do you think? They share examples like a renewed interest we see in SNL, The Daily Show, the use of costumes in protest, like the No Kings marches. What do you think about the current political climate and how that has impacted arts advocacy? Such an interesting question.
I think that's has it done it any favors? That's an interesting way to put it, because my immediate answer is no. But I think that it is really interesting that people want to assemble. Mm-hmm. They want to be together to voice with one voice or multiple voices their thoughts and feelings on a particular issue. I think the Oregon inflatable dinosaur thing, I don't understand that at all, but people are showing up. I guess they don't want necessarily their identity, but I think it's also this idea that, if you've got somebody saying that a city is burning and the threat are inflatable dinosaurs, there's a visual there that cannot be reconciled. So I do think that is it's a really interesting question. I don't know that this is the favor we want. Yeah, that's what I'll say.
I think it's a good moment. What do I want to say about this? So many things. I think that the leadership, Can I call it that? In the US, is helping young people understand the value of education and facts and truth on a very basic level. I think the fact that we currently have a prime minister who is intelligent matters. I think the idea of building and returning to articulating values matters to the arts. That's something we're good at. What else would I say about this? I think you're right, Karen. I think, I'm thinking of Timothy Schneider. If you've followed the news, U of T has had an influx of professors from the US. And Timothy Schneider came from Yale, one of many. And he says doing something means you're not doing nothing. And so it doesn't matter what you do. It just matters that you do something, that you stand up, that you speak out when something is wrong. And this is real brass tack stuff. And I think that arts classrooms are good at doing things, not sitting back, not watching, not observing. And I think we actually can capitalize on this moment of what it means to stand up for oneself, for others, for our peers, for those who are rejected. To me, I have over these years of research, I have seen a very, very compelling line between what I'll call the emergence of an activist voice in young people that happens in drama classrooms. I think you can, when you have a shared purpose in a room, no matter how flawed, no matter how much failure you encounter, the action of trying to make something happen with other people is very, very fortifying. It doesn't happen often in a math class unless you're working on a group problem. So I think that's a skill that is unique to many performing arts environments. And I think the effort to try something, which is really what's happening in the protests around the world, and maybe more newly in North America, I'm a big believer in how an activist voice can get awakened in those processes. So on face value, is the articulation of anti-arts, anti-immigrant, anti-everything helping us in any way? No, I agree with Karen. The answer is not no. But is it giving us renewed cause for standing up for what we do believe in, for awaking a bit from our slumber? Yes. And that's where I think arts classrooms can really take advantage, seize the moment, and sow the seeds for young people in understanding their own power in a moment that is tilting towards authoritarianism. There is no question about it.
The question also made me think about what you shared earlier about, at a time of digital oppression, essentially, young people turn to making bags, reading books naturally. So, and that idea of us, we are all creative, artistic beings, and so we have naturally turned there. It also made me think about the challenge of conversation in political turmoil, where it can be hard to find a place together, sometimes coming at it sideways or wearing a dinosaur costume, or the absurd is the only way in. I trained as a drama and French teacher, and one of my favorite professors was a Rwandan professor, and we studied Rwandan literature, and it was all quite funny and absurd. And he said you couldn't look at it, the horror, directly. You had to come at it from the side, and the arts is the way to do that. And so that question makes me think about those things. Let me collapse these into one last super question, as we close. I think it's, how do I put it? There are questions in here about the assessment piece with something so subjective, and also questions about, and we touched on this, why parents don't want their children to just be a drama major, why they must also be this and. So I guess as you think about the systems that we're all working in as arts organizations, schools, what would you say to a young person who is curious about pursuing this, whether as a 10-year-old, as a 15-year-old, or as someone looking toward what they want to do in their life? What advice would you give them?
Don't do it. Just kidding.
Run away.
No, just kidding. And I'll just say I have a friend whose daughter really wants to be a dermatologist. She's in grade 11. That's what she wants to do. She's a beautiful singer and an incredible performer. And my friend Lydia is always saying to her, I really think you should pursue musical theater. And I appreciate that so much because yeah, maybe after that you can go to med school or whatever. But it's the value of, I'm a big believer in the humanities, in a liberal arts education as a way to learn how to think, how to see the world, how to compare arguments, to learn how to think for yourself and not be taught what to think and then think it. And I get this question from co-op students a lot. What did your parents say when you said you wanted to be in the arts? And I think about the incredible privilege that I had from my parents. Now I'm going to get emotional. After I finished my theater degree and had the opportunity to work in marketing for a big company, and my mom said, but when will you do your theater? And like, how lucky am I that was the response, that I was really given the privilege to pursue something that was so important to me. So I recognize that that's certainly not the case for everybody. And I think, I don't think that I'm in a position to tell young people what they should and shouldn't pursue because I don't know what their lived experience is and what will be very important for them. But I would say that, if the arts lift you up, if the arts give you a place to process and think, then just to make sure that it's always in your life in whatever form it ends up taking. That even if due to many kinds of pressures, it turns out that your career will be something else, it's not a closed door in terms of what makes your life meaningful.
Yeah, that's so great, Karen. I agree. I could never make such a blanket statement or a sales pitch. I feel like I have to listen because life circumstances, dreams, hopes, these are things I've studied and they're so particular and individual and shaped by all kinds of factors that no one teacher could ever know. But what I know to be true, I feel like I can't not reference, someone at the back here was in my grade 10 drama class when I was a drama teacher. Mm-hmm. Was it 30 years ago, Sylvia? Sylvia's an extraordinary external medicine doctor in Toronto now.
Internal
medicine. What did I say?
External medicine.
My God. She's not an external medicine. I don't even know what that is. It's not a thing, right? Okay, so Sylvia is a really good example of exactly what Karen has said. For all kinds of reasons I don't need to share with you, Sylvia became a doctor. She is someone who has kept theater alive in her life in every conceivable way. And really anyone in any profession does that. And maybe that's what some people do and other people pursue avenues of meaningful work in the industry. I think it's unimportant and I think nothing is forever. And I think people find their way. And I think we do young people such a disservice when we make them choose, and we make them choose so prematurely. Mm-hmm. So do the route and do the thing. I keep thinking of my son who was in first year university this year, and he was in grade 12 last year and in grade 11 before that. And he very clearly got the message in his school, a regular West End public high school in Toronto, that if you were smart, you did sciences and maths. And if you weren't, you did anything else. So he lined up all the sciences because his teachers thought they were doing the right thing. Oh, you're a really good student. You should do all of the maths and all of the sciences. And he did. And he was fine because lucky for him, he's good at lots of things. But when he came to choosing university and his course, he said, I like science, Mom. I don't know. I don't think I love it, but I like it. And I said, what do you love? And he said, well, I love politics, which is true from maybe about the age of 7, when I found him watching reruns of debates from previous elections in the middle of the night.
He's a very fun kid, though.
He's a very fun kid. Oh, yeah, he's a totally fun kid. But when I came into the living room in the middle of the night and said, what are you watching? It was a rerun of Elizabeth May on the debate stage from 4 years earlier. And he said, Mom, why does no one know how smart she is? He was 10. He could read the panel. So I said, why wouldn't you go into political science? You've loved this your whole life. And he said, well, I guess that's my fallback. I never forgot this. And I said, what's a fallback? What's a fallback? And he said, well, I guess if I don't do really well in the smart subjects, I could. And I said, fallback? You pursue what you love. He's also a privileged and lucky kid who has a parent, and we have the means to say, follow your heart, follow what you love, which is, of course, what he's doing at the University of Ottawa now. But I think we need to undo a lot of what we are inadvertently communicating, whether that's in the home or in a school, about the hierarchy of knowledge and intelligence. In my 2 research projects ago, I was interviewing in England, in Coventry, 12-year-old kids. And one of them said to me, I don't know what to do. Should I go the science route or the drama route? I love both. And I said to him, how old are you? And he said, 12 and a half. And I said, and you have to choose now? Oh, yeah, I have to know now. It has to be science or drama. That's a tragedy that we do that. So in all the ways that we interrupt those impulses that we have, that we think are about expertise, we have to dismantle them quietly, and we have to let kids keep it all alive. That's it.
I know Mira will properly close us, but for those of you wanting to go to the dance workshop, I'm happy to meet you out there and ferry you over a couple minutes late. And I know we're also happy to be outside to chat a little bit more with anybody who wishes. But I'll turn it over to Mira.
Thank you. I almost forgot I had to come up here because I was just so engrossed in listening to you guys. And then I went, oh gosh, what time is it? I have one question that I'm going to answer because I don't usually get to do that. What is the name of Kathleen's book and how do I get it? Her book, I assume the book you were asking about, is Hope in a Collapsing World, Youth, Theatre, and Listening as a Political Alternative. And I have found it online available at Indigo and Amazon and hopefully your local bookstore. Thank you very much. And thank you to all of you for making arts part of your life this morning and as part of this season. This is our final speaking event of the year, as I mentioned at the beginning. So thank you for being here for the closing of our speaking season. We are in the process of putting the final touches on our 2026 programming. Very exciting. The forum team consists of Julie Miles, Gregory McLaughlin, James Hyatt, Renata Hansen at the back there, and myself. Yes, let's give them a big round of applause. Woo! And on behalf of the team, I just want to say thank you very much to you and to our awesome, awesome panelists. What a way to end the season. Thank you very much and see you next year.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to keep up with the lively conversations and original performances on the Stratford Festival streaming service, Stratfest at Home. And for making it this far in the episode, enjoy 1 month for free. Visit stratfestathome.ca and enter code FREEMONTH. It takes you, our listeners, to make this possible. It also takes the support of our dear collaborators. Support for the Meighen Forum is generously provided by Kelly and Michael Meighen and the TR Meighen Family Foundation. Original score for the Everyday Forum podcast was provided by Hilary Adams. Production support is provided by the film production and distribution team at the Stratford Festival. That is coordinator Vilma Mancini and director Jenna McGaw. The Meighen Forum team is producing assistant Renata Hansen, associate coordinator James Hyatt, manager Gregory McLaughlin, and director Julie Miles. Special thanks to Mike Duncan, Greg Doherty, and Harper Charlton. Finally, thanks to artistic director Anthony Cimolino and executive director Anita Gaffney. From here in Stratford, Ontario, on the land of the Neutrals and the Anishinaabe, see you next time. Ba Ma Pi.